Hello students, welcome back. Today we'll be discussing a different topic, a new topic that is related to science and technology, right? The topic is Starlink project, right? Hope you have heard about this project. Try to guess it, right? So it's highly important for UPSC and competitive examinations because it's related to internet connectivity, right? And international relations as well, okay, and developments in science and technology also, okay. So let's begin with this session. First of all, I hope you have come across this term called as Starlink, right? It's related to SpaceX. I hope you know SpaceX, right? It's the company of Elon Musk. Now, after successful in space sector, now he's trying to build a internet connectivity. He wants to give internet connectivity through to the entire world, that is through satellites. So that particular firm of Elon Musk is called as Starlink, which is also linked to SpaceX, right? So let's get into the details and try to understand what is this project and what are the other features of it. So first is Starlink is a satellite based broadband internet service, right? See, today what we have, the internet is a traditional type of broadband internet whereby we need a lot of towers and we need a lot of cables, right? Fiber optics, hope you have known this. So we need a lot of fiber optics as well as the towers, signals and all these things, infrastructure, so that a person can get internet, right? So the difference here is that Starlink is a satellite based broadband internet. Though even though the current traditional internet providers or ISPs, what we say, internet service providers, they also use satellite for internet, but the satellite connection is not direct to the home, right? The satellite connection is provided is taken by the towers, signal towers, big towers, the if you take for these internet service providers like Airtel or might be Geo or might be somebody else, they erect a huge towers for signals, and these towers are connected to fiber optic cables, and these fiber optic cables are laid beneath the roads throughout the city, and these fiber optics reach the home, and from home you have a broadband connection through that. So even though satellite connection is there, it's not direct to your home, right? But here Starlink is going to provide direct satellite based connectivity, whereby general all this ground infrastructure is not required, and direct to the home satellite will be broadcasting the internet, right? Broadband internet. Now how this happens, let's see. It is developed by SpaceX, right? The private aerospace company founded by Elon Musk. Next, what is the purpose? The purpose of this particular project is to provide high speed internet, right? The purpose of this project is to provide high speed internet, low latency. Latency is like the delay, right? Delay when you are clicking some sites or websites, the processing time, all these things happen. So high speed internet with very low processing time, or very low delay, right? And that too globally, not to a particular city, not to a particular state or country, to the entire world, especially remote and rural areas. Because the problem with the remote and rural areas is that laying the infrastructure, erecting huge towers, and laying the fiber optic cable, all these things will be a huge challenge, right, in the remote areas or rural areas. Therefore this particular project is going to benefit everybody throughout the world, but remote and rural areas are going to benefit a lot, where traditional internet infrastructure is lacking. Again, the technology, how he is planning to provide this particular internet, it is he is using a constellation of low earth orbit satellites. And what is low earth orbit, we'll see that later on. So a constellation means what? A group of, right, a group of satellites which are rotating around the earth in a low earth orbit, LEO, that is approximately 550 kilometers above the earth's surface, right? Generally the other satellites that we see today, like the geostationary satellites, They are around 36,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface. That's the major difference. So very near to Earth, that is 550 kilometers, and a constellation of satellites. Right. Now, just we'll have a look at the evolution of this particular Starlink project. In 2015, SpaceX announced Starlink, right? The aim was to tap into the massive global internet market, because throughout the world, internet facilities were lacking in a lot of countries. Therefore, he wanted to capture that particular market and also support its Mars ambitions, right? Because Starlink, Elon Musk is having a famous quotation that even though he was born on the Earth, he wants to die on the Mars. That is his aim. That may realize or might not realize, but that is his goal. So his project is to colonize Mars. He wants to set up, human colonies on Mars, right? Therefore, this Starlink project is also going to help him. Already SpaceX is there. He's launching a lot of satellites and rockets into space. So SpaceX, Starlink, this both of the projects are going to help him in his Mars ambitions. So that's the aim, that's the fundamental goal. Right, in 2018, we see he launched the first demo satellites, and these demo satellites were named Tintin A and Tintin B. Remember these names because they might be asked in prelims. So Tintin A and Tintin B, right, were the first demo satellites for this particular Starlink project. Then next we see in 2019, a first batch of 60 operational satellites were deployed, right? 60 operational satellites deployed via Falcon 9 rocket, right? Then next 2021 onwards, they began the commercial rollout. Means Elon Musk or the Starlink project, it started, providing its services, right? Commercial services and accepting pre-orders across various countries. So he's taking orders from throughout the countries because it's a satellite-based internet connectivity. So throughout the world, anywhere any person can have access to the internet. So, what are the key features of this particular Starlink project? If we see satellites in low Earth orbit that we have seen. So, how many satellites is the question? Because we have seen constellation of satellites. In the earlier slide, we have seen some 60 satellites as part of first batch were sent into the space. But now, what is the bigger picture? If we see, more than 5,000 satellites are already deployed. As of 2025, we see 5,000 satellites are already deployed, and the total number is approximately 42,000 satellites. This is so huge, so huge. So on a total of 42,000 satellites, he's going to launch them into the space. That's the key feature. Then another feature is very low latency. Generally, latency today that we are experiencing in the current internet, even though 4G or 5G internet, we are experiencing latency of about 60 to 80 milliseconds. But here he is promising that the latency will be less than 20 milliseconds, that making it usable for video calls, gamings, and real-time operations, right? Next, definitely speed will be so much high. Currently, the speeds that we are having are around 50 to 100 mbps that we are seeing today in the 5G, but he is going to offer somewhere 50 mbps to even 250 mbps speed. This is also going to increase. It's not going to be limited to 250 only, right? So with the potential for gigabyte speeds in future. So see, we are just seeing 250 mbps as a starting itself, but maybe gigabyte speeds like 10 gigabyte speed or 100 gigabyte speeds can also be possible, right? Coverage, you see, already active in parts of North America. Currently people in America are using it, right? People in Europe are using it. People in Africa and some countries in Asia are also having access, because it depends on various countries to give permissions. So already in these areas, the people are using this particular Starlink internet connectivity, right? Now, what is the terminal? Means dish, means a Starlink uses users, whoever are using this particular Starlink, they have to install a compact satellite dish on top of their home. Like you have a DTH. A lot of people they watch televisions today. Television is a direct to home service, right? DTH dishes, basically dish antennas we see, right? They are installed on top of the home, and it receives the signals, right? So therefore a satellite dish will be there, a Wi-Fi router will be there, and again cables within the home for installation. So there is no need of any outside cable, right? Satellite dish, Wi-Fi router, and the cables within the home. So this is the these we can say are the features of this particular Starlink project, how it is going to work, right? So so this is the entire structure. If you see the diagram, right, this is the ground segment, space segment, and the user segment, right? Users home, right? The ground segment, they have all the servers and the uplink stations, right, from where the data can be sent to the satellites. In the space we see there is a constellation of satellites which are linked to each other, right? All these satellites are linked to each other, right? And with this link, they are able to provide the internet connectivity. Now this is the dish that has to be installed on top of the home, right? That is something called as a Starlink dish antenna, right? Now this antenna is connected to the router and then the Wi-Fi access point. Now whereby you can see the internet could be laptop or all the other devices like today we are using in our homes. All these will be connected. So this is the basic idea, right? Now we'll see what happens. Signal from the earth station, that is ground station, beams internet signal to the Starlink satellites, right? Satellite network, satellites transmit data using laser links. That has to be understood, using laser links, creating a mesh network in the orbit. So this is a mesh network in the orbit. Again, signal to user terminal. The signal is then relayed to the user's dish antenna. Therefore, data flow, we see two-way data exchange occurs, that is uploading and downloading, bouncing through satellites or ground stations. So this is the method in which Starlink is going to work. Now, coming to the point whether it is revolutionary or not, why Starlink is considered as a revolutionary, right? You can see this particular picture is a woman sitting somewhere remote area, might be a desert, right? Now she is having this particular Starlink dish antenna, some sort of connection, Wi-Fi router, and it is directly connected to her laptop. Can you imagine this, sitting in the desert, sitting on a ship in a ocean, or sitting in a mountainous region, or sitting in a remote village? No, you can have the internet connectivity. This thing which was until recently it was thought to be very challenging, to provide internet infrastructure to such areas. Now this has become accessible today because of the Starlink. That's the reason it can be considered as a revolutionary, right? So therefore, why, if we figure it out, first thing is bridging the digital divide. What digital divide means? What generally the remote villages, mountains, desert, oceans, these are currently not lacking the infrastructure for the internet. Therefore all these things will get internet anywhere with a clear sky. So this is a bit mandatory, because clear sky, if you have a lot of clouds, then there might be some sort of disturbances, but clear sky is a minimum requirement, right? Especially it will be helpful in rural education, disaster relief operations, defense and communications, and remote healthcare as well, right? Because the internet connectivity will be provided to each and every location. So then the bridging digital divide is the first point. What else is the reasons? If we see alternative to 4G or 5G, definitely it's a very big alternative. No need of any fiber optical cables, towers, or expensive last mile connectivity infrastructure. So a lot of infrastructure can be saved. It acts as an independent system, means immune to ground infrastructure failures. Like for example, if we are using this traditional system of infrastructure, let's say floods have struck an area, earthquake have struck an area, and all these towers will be collapsed. Optical cables, fiber optical cables will be, all the infrastructure will be collapsed. Therefore, no internet connectivity can be provided in the region, even though infrastructure was laid. So such things, such disturbances will not happen definitely if somebody is using the Starlink project, because Starlink project is completely immune to such kind of failures, right? Next, disaster and war communication. If you see Starlink, recently, if you see, because the Russia and Ukraine war is going on, and because of this particular war, a lot of traditional infrastructure got collapsed in the Ukraine. Therefore, Starlink was used in Ukraine to maintain internet during the Russian attacks. It also helps in emergency scenarios where local internet is disrupted. So, therefore, in all these reasons, we can consider Starlink as revolutionary. Here also, it can be seen that in a mountainous region, also internet connectivity can be provided, right? So boosting the scientific research enables researchers in Antarctica or remote forests or oceans to transmit data in the real time. Now also data is happening transfer, but it's not in the real time, right? Next, global competition and innovation. Competition is also there. A lot of, it's not only that Elon Musk is trying to do this thing. There are other countries and people who are also trying to come up with such ideas, that is competing with other satellite internet programs. So is that Amazon is also trying to launch something called as Project Kuiper. Then OneWeb, it's a UK based company, OneWeb. Then China is also trying its hand. It's called as the Guo Wang project. So remember these names: Project Kuiper, OneWeb, and Guo Wang and Starlink. Okay, all these are same and similar, trying to provide satellite based internet connectivity, right? So hope you got it. Then coming to the other developments, what are the other focuses of this project? If you see, the Starlink project is working on a satellite cellular service. So in future, or currently, the work is going on, and Starlink also wants to provide not only internet, not only Wi-Fi, but even direct satellite cellular service as well. Because from satellite itself, no, today we are using cell phones, right? Apart from internet, the cell phones that we are using, the tower, the signal for the phones is coming from the tower, right? Wherever there is no tower in the mountainous areas, you will not find any signal for the mobile or cell phone connectivity, right? Now direct satellite to cell phone, satellite cellular service is also going on, with the capability of direct to cell, means from satellite direct to cell, right? Something today we use as satellite phones, and today the satellite phones are possessed by high level individuals or officials, government officials, let's say district collectors or police administration. They only use the satellite phones, and that too during the disaster relief operations, it will be helpful for them. But once Starlink rolls out these direct to cell services, everybody can have a satellite cell phone or satellite communication without depending on the local traditional tower type of infrastructure, right? It provides access to calling, texting, browsing, LTE phones at any location. So currently the phones that we are using are called as LTE. On land, water, and even in the dead zones, we can have our cell phones working. So that's also going on. Then it will also connect to IoT devices, like directly satellite communication to Internet of Things. Then beyond home broadband connectivity, Starlink is also branching into something called as aviation and maritime connectivity. Like whenever we travel in the flights, we don't have any cellular connectivity. We cannot make calls from a plane, right? But this also is going to change, and this particular satellite cellular services are going to allow even airlines, like to offer reliable on-board internet. Even currently we see the Qatar Airways or the Air France, they are providing internet services to their passengers on aboard a flight. Currently that's happening, it might expand in the future, right? So these are the other developments, and for all these things, what are the challenges and what is the criticism that Starlink is facing? First thing is the cost. It's highly expensive, because approximately $100 per month. So you can just see it's a huge costly. Then space debris. thousands of satellites raise the risk of collision, because see, just for the sake of internet, only one company called as Starlink is going to launch some 42,000 satellites into space, and this is not going to stop, right? This is going to increase and increase. And apart from that, if other companies from China, Europe, and also if they also launch such type of satellites, there will be thousands and thousands of satellites in low earth orbit. Now that would be definitely a disturbance, right? There is a risk of collision. The satellites, the satellites related to Starlink itself might collide into one another, or for that matter, currently we are having a lot of satellites in space, right, which are rotating around the earth. Therefore, such other satellites may also collide, right? So there is a high risk. This particular thing is called as Kessler syndrome. Remember, satellites colliding into one another is something called as a Kessler syndrome, right? Apart from this, we also see astronomy interference is happening, because from Earth there are a lot of observatories, right? A lot of observatories, people who observe the skies and the stars. So therefore, satellites reflect a lot of light, interfering with the ground based telescopes. So that might be problematic. Then regulation, global coordination needed for spectrum allocation, orbital slots. Currently this spectrum allocation is in the hands of governments, and for traditional services like 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, we see that government is allocating some sort of spectrum to the private cellular or telecom service providers, right? But what about this Starlink? Now, who is going to regulate it? There is no such a strong, world level regulation over here. Therefore, global coordination is needed, so that spectrum allocation or orbital slots can be allotted meaningfully, right? So these are the some sort of challenges or criticism that Starlink is facing. What is the difference with the traditional satellites that we see? Starlink operates in a low Earth orbit, that is 550 kilometers from the Earth's surface. Traditional satellites like geo orbits, they are at a height of 36,000 kilometers. Like, it's something called as a geostationary Earth orbit, right? Geostationary Earth orbit. So latency today we are seeing somewhere around 600 plus 600 milliseconds of latency that we are seeing today, whereas Starlink promises only 20 to 40 milliseconds of latency. Speed, currently we are expecting 100, 50 Mbps, or at least 100 Mbps is also possible. But as we are seeing, Starlink can go up to Gbps as well, Mbps again into Gbps as well. Installation very easy, because user terminal plus application, that's it. But for this type of infrastructure, we need a lot of professional installation, like towers, fiber cables, or all these things, fiber optics. Mobility, it can be taken anywhere. If you are a subscriber or a customer to the Starlink, you can take your dish anywhere in the world. It's not that you only have to stay in a particular place. Wherever you go, you can take the dish or antenna with you, and you will have the internet connectivity. Therefore there is a high mobility. But here, if you have a router in the home, you cannot even go outside of your home. The moment you step outside of your home, most probably the router shows a weak connection, or the connection gets lost, right? Just trying to understand the low earth orbit. If you see this particular picture, this particular orbit, you can see it is very near to the earth, right? You can see the distance from the earth. So very near to the earth, that is approximately 550 kilometers from the surface. That is something called as a low earth orbit, right? And this is something, you can see the distance, this particular orbit, right? It's something called as a geo, that is a geostationary earth orbit. So you can see the distance, you can see the distance between these two satellites, right? That's something approximately 36,000 kilometers. So I hope you got an idea of what low earth orbit is and what geo orbit is, right? Next, significance of the Starlink, what we see is that it definitely bridges the digital divide, very low latency, lifeline during crisis, like rapid deployment. It can be deployed very easily. It's invaluable for disaster response and humanitarian aid, right? On all such conditions, it's highly significant. Next, what are the future goals and long term vision if we see what Starlink wants to do. So first thing is the massive satellite expansion. Currently we are seeing just 5,000 of those satellites in the sky, but in future it is going to be 42,000 plus. There is no end for this plus. It might be 1 lakh or even more than that, right? Therefore, see, you can see how the outer atmosphere in this particular picture, you can see how this particular low earth orbit, you can see how many satellites are going to come up. This would definitely might create some challenge or disturbance, right? Sometimes in the night, you'll see a line like this. You can see a line of lights, such kind of lights traveling in the sky. This is nothing but a group of Starlink satellites. You might get wondered that in the night sky all these stars are moving together. They are not actually stars. They are the Starlink satellites, right? So uh, so that's one thing. Massive satellite expansion is going to happen. Apart from that, technological enhancements like Starlink satellite links for ground independent connectivity, integration with the current 5G and IoT and Internet of Things integration is also going to happen in the future. Apart from that, supporting the space explorations. Starlink, is the backbone for interplanetary communication. This is what is the major aim. So Starlink is not only to provide internet connectivity to the people on Earth, but even people sitting on the Mars. Let's say, because that's the ultimate aim of Elon Musk. He wants to colonize Mars. Therefore, people who are sitting on the Mars should also have some sort of internet connectivity. Therefore, this is a Starlink project, and there is another project called as Mars Link, right? Starlink on Earth, Mars Link is a link between Starlink and future people who are going to be settling on the Mars, so that they can have the internet connectivity, right? Again, to sustain high bandwidth links between Earth and the Mars. That's the project. Again, efficiency with the Starship as well. Starship is a massive payload capacity with a dramatically streamlined satellite deployment. It's a type of a rocket which is deploying these satellites, enabling rapid constellation build, reducing the cost. So this Starship is a particular type of rocket which can carry at a time many number of such Starlink satellites to the space, right? So these things are there. Then next, what are the limitations and concerns? If we see astronomical interference, we have seen already, because low earth orbit satellites hinder the night sky observations for astronomers. Space debris, now you can see in this picture, a lot of, see, one problem is there of satellite collision, right? One satellite might collide into another. Apart from that, what about the used satellites? Because see, these many satellites we are sending currently, we are sending these many satellites into the space. Generally, once the use is over, these satellites are discarded in the space itself, means they become a debris in the space. Okay, currently, all these countries are sending satellites for governmental purpose, for security, and for weather purposes, which are very limited to some extent. But just assume if lakhs and lakhs of satellites are being sent for internet connectivity, and once their usage is over, let's say in future after maybe 10, 15, or 20 years, their time period or their usage is over, what to do with that? Will they return back? No, they'll become a debris in the space, right? So that's a huge challenge. Large constellation poses collision threats, definitely, and apart from that, space debris when they are out of use. Collision warnings. Already we see European Space Agency have executed evasive maneuvers, because see, currently there are a lot of satellites in the space, right? Which were launched by government agencies for weather and security purposes. Now, once these Starlink satellites are operational in the space, already they are coming into the way of the other satellites. Therefore, European Space Agency has already executed evasive maneuver. Evasive maneuver means what? The Starlink satellite is here, the other satellite is coming in its way, therefore it has to change its course. This is something called as a evasive maneuver. Not exactly like this, but just to avoid a collision, taking a different path. that is something called as evasive maneuver. This has already been attempted by European Space Agency. No, just with 5,000 satellites currently, this is the problem. Just imagine what will be the problem if there are lakhs of satellites in the space. Then next, there is going to be huge geopolitical impact because Starlink, it's gaining traction. A lot of countries, people from a lot of countries. No, see, the problem, basic problem will be it will be out of the control for the governments, right? Its expansion faces geopolitical sensitivities, especially regarding ties to US politics as well, because currently we are seeing a lot of issues are happening within the US political system. Then therefore that might also have effect to other countries, the way globalization is happening. So when entire globe is connected through the trade, and if one country is suffering, all other countries are suffering, that we are seeing today. Now entire earth is connected with internet connectivity through satellite communication. Just assume, some problem in one part of the world might also become a huge problem, or might also spill over into other parts of the world. Therefore geopolitical sensitivities are definitely there. Security issues might also be there, right? So when there are pros, definitely there are cons as well. Now coming to India, right? What's happening in India? Starlink in India, if we see regulatory hurdles, Starlink has already applied for license to operate in India. Therefore, government has asked to get necessary approvals. So it is in the approval stage, right? Some regulatory things. It's dealing with all these things. So in future, if government gives permission, there is a possibility that Starlink might operate in India as well. Trial plans, initially Starlink is trying to provide 2 lakh connections, specifically in rural India, because urban India is already connected to internet. So rural India is where infrastructure is lacking. Therefore initial plans are this. Then policy relevance, like it can support the digital India initiative of the government. It can support the telemedicine, right? It can also support in e-governance, because a lot of rural area also comes into connectivity of the internet. Rural education initiatives can also happen, right? Then there are other challenges. What are the challenges? Under spectrum policy. Now what about the spectrum policy of the government? Because the telecom service providers in India, they have to go through a huge process of applying for the spectrum every time. 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, or might be in future 6G is coming up. Then what will be the government policy then, right? What type of allocation will you do for the this particular Starlink project, whether it's affordable or not, because it would be costing around more than 50,000 or more. And again, space debris concerns are also there. What if satellites fall into some country, right? That might also happen. So this is what is the progress with India, and Indian tie-ups are also happening. What we see is that Airtel, Bharti Airtel, and Jio, right? They've already announced agreements with the SpaceX. Now, this announcement happened in March 2025, so very recently. So already Airtel and Jio, they have agreements with Starlink broadband internet services to offer its services to customers in India. But definitely this service is subject to SpaceX receiving authorization from India. So the entire authorization process is going on. It's currently under processing, we can say. But once SpaceX is receiving authorization from the government, both Airtel and Jio are going to utilize Starlink services, to provide better services for their customers. So this is something related to Indian tie-ups. So in the conclusion, in the end, what we can say is that Starlink is definitely a game changer in the global internet connectivity scenario. It will definitely revolutionize access in remote areas. It would definitely enhance emergency communication. It would definitely complement the terrestrial network. So whatever terrestrial networks today that we have, 4G, 5G, etc., need not be removed. Right? They are there. The current infrastructure, whatever is there, that would be there definitely. But Starlink would be a complement in addition to that. It would not replace them. That has to be understood, because see, this is the most important. Sometimes such statements are given in prelims examinations, and we might think them to be false, right? But they are true. So its success will depend on regulatory framework, because different countries are having different types of regulatory frameworks. Affordability also, if people should also afford it, right? Again, ethical space governance is also there. The next, it aligns with India's digital expansion goals as well, because we have Digital India mission, right? So it is in accordance with our Digital India mission. It also underscores the necessity for regulatory oversight, space sustainability, and astronomy protection. These are the terms that has to be used if you are writing a mains type of answer, right? Definitely you would get marks for them. So that's what is the conclusion. Hope you got the topic. Hope because all the relevant details have been given, prelims related as well as mains related, right? Hope you enjoyed this particular session. Thank you.